telling story. So sure, we can find some time for telling stories. But this text uh, is not much humor in it, so we have to bring it in. Huh?
Yes, Master. And okay, perhaps may I ask you a question?
Okay, sure.
Yes. Uh, could you tell us what is non-abiding nirvana means, and is it any relation to the text?
Wait, let me see. The voice is okay. You can hear me clearly.
Yes, very clear,
Yes.
I
Master.
can
Okay.
hear. I can hear to some extent. I will maybe make it stronger. Moniko, tady je to maximum, jo?
Ano. A čo by si prosil?
No, abych je slyšel dobře, já je slyším jenom částečně, jo?
Už to nejde viac. Si 100%.
Okay. So the question was, please repeat it again so that I have time to think about it.
Yes. What does the non-abiding nirvana means, and is there any
Well,
relation to
this,
this text?
okay, sure, there is a relation. This name Apratishtita Nirvana, Apratishtita, there may be something similar in Indonesian language. Pratishtita means established, from the root sta, to stand. Apratishtita is non-established. So you will find this name and the explanation of it only in the Mahayana literature, in Sanskrit literature, in Tibetan, Chinese. So it is opposed to, normally in, as we all should know, in the Buddhist tradition, you have two types of nirvana. The nirvana with rest, sa adishesha, and nirvana without rest. The nirvana with rest is the state of an arahat when he became arahat. So he still, like all of us, has to live in the five aggregates. But when he dies, when the arahat dies, so the Mara cannot see him. Mara means the five aggregates of clinging. The death cannot see him. This is also Mara, the death, the five aggregates of clinging, the kleshas, the defilements of the mind. All this is Mara. So the Mara cannot see him because he is not attached to the five aggregates. So he attains nirvana without rest. The rest are the five aggregates. So we beings, we are all dependent on the five aggregates, and the five aggregates is, with clinging, is our burden, which we have to carry as long as we have clinging from life to life. But the arahat does not produce any more active karma, so he does not carry anymore this burden when he dies. Now, in the Mahayana literature, the great Pragya Paramita Sutra, you will find the four kinds of nirvana. The traditional two, which we have explained. Then you have the natural nirvana. And then you have the nirvana, which you say attain by the correct practice of not abiding anywhere. So not abiding everywhere, anywhere, not in nirvana, not in samsara, is the practice of the bodhisattva. And because his practice is non-abiding anywhere, and it is the only way to attain the apratishtita nirvana, the nirvana which is not established. So we talk about this non-established nirvana as opposed to the nirvana in a dualistic sense, which is the opposite of samsara. Samsara means the 5 aggregates of clinging. The Arahat has no 5 aggregates of clinging, but he has not yet attained the Dharma body because he is still subjected to his habits. When I become an Arahat, I may prefer to eat Czech dumplings. When you become an Arahat, you may prefer to eat rice. This is natural. We are all subjected to our habits and we recognize the habits, but the habits are cannot give rise to active karmic consciousness. In case of an Arahat. In our case, these habits can still give rise to active karmic consciousness because we are not arahats. So this is a difference. And the nirvana which the bodhisattva attains is the non-dualistic nirvana. It is also called as the great nirvana as opposed to the dualistic nirvana, which is for some reason and other, you always find some comparisons. Through comparisons we learn. The Mahayana teaching is also based on comparisons. The Theravada teachings also based on comparisons. The Sarvastivada, all teachings based on comparison. When you don't compare, you don't teach. But this great nirvana is beyond all comparison. So it neither exists nor non-exists. It is neither oneness nor differentiation. It is, so to say, unattainable by any thinking whatsoever. So when you have this non-dualistic nirvana, so you say you become one with the Dharmakaya. So you don't oppose the evil, you don't cling to the good. You are beyond thinking, beyond comparison. And so you come, we will learn in this text the awakening of faith in Mahayana. Maybe today we will come to that part. You will come to the original state, the original enlightenment, the original awakening. The original awakening is awakening to this Dharmakaya. And this Dharmakaya penetrates everything. And in this concept of the Tathagata Garbha, it flows in the 5 or 6 destinies. Originally, the Chittamatrata philosophy does not have the idea of the suchness flowing in all destinies and being equal with the one mind. This is the teaching of the which we are now discussing, the teaching of the Tathagata Garbha. So we have explained in the beginning, we have three main concepts of uh, dependent origination, three main concepts of Buddhism. The dependent origination based on karma, which is a basic concept. The dependent origination based on the alaya, which is the uh, consciousness which dwells in the world. And then you have this teaching explained in our text, the dependent origination based on the mind which does not dwell anywhere. And in the beings in us, this mind is with is one mind with obstacles. We have learned in the beginning of our text that this dharma means one mind. It includes all minds. The nature of the mind is the Buddha nature. Therefore, we beings, we are never separated from the Buddha. And the non-living things, what we experience, is also Dharmakaya. So when we live as beings, we are connected to Buddha nature. When we the, the things we experience, they are also Dharmakaya. And we have seen the Buddhakaya and Dharmakaya, they cannot be separated. So this is further developed in philosophy, as you know, in Chinese Avatamsaka Sutra and so on, in Chinese philosophy. In one atom contains all worlds, and all worlds can be contained in one atom. Because as we learn in this scripture, everything is just one mind. And one mind is unattainable inside, outside. Yet we have to realize it. And when we realize it, then we come to the very essence of the mind we have learned. And this essence of the mind is the unchangeable. It is a Buddhahood. But its manifestations, which we experience through the alaya, we will learn today in our text, they are the manifestations of this one mind. Manifestations of this one mind. The images that this one mind creates when it flows in the 6 spheres or 5 spheres of existence. So this apratishtita nirvana, the non-established nirvana, is the concept to explain the bodhisattva practice. The bodhisattva practice is based on one reality. One reality, reality of emptiness. And this emptiness cannot be established, but also cannot be denied. But we cannot establish it. When we establish it, it is not emptiness. So it is beyond the words, as we have learned in the beginning of our text. It has no name, it is Wuming, it is Wuzi. It has no names, it has no syllables, it has nothing, no images, no nimitta which one can grasp. And when you attain it, and you can only attain it when you don't grasp, then you can realize, this is kind of a paradox, the deep thoughts are always taught by paradoxes. When you realize the unrealizable, then you become the Buddha. Very wonderful. So uh, that's why, as in the Zen tradition, you have to investigate the clapping of one palm. You have to investigate the that which is beyond grasping. The you have to learn how to catch the shadow, how to catch the echo. You cannot catch it, and that is catching. So this is attaining the non-established nirvana, catching by not catching anything, realizing by direct realization. The Mahayana scriptures put emphasis on direct realization. But direct realization we can only attain again by wisdom from hearing, Shrutamaya Pragya, wisdom from contemplation, Chintamaya Pragya, and finally by wisdom from meditation. And how you hear, so you will contemplate, and how you contemplate, so will you meditate. So this concept of non-established nirvana, which is in a way paradox, because how can nirvana be established? But through paradoxes, we understand the deep meaning. This non-established nirvana is a concept explaining non-dualistic nirvana. This non-dualistic nirvana is then connected with the realization of, in the late Mahayana scriptures, with the realization of the true self. The true self is the supreme self, which is in everything. Paramatma as opposed to Atma. And this true self is indeed the, as the Brahmin scriptures explain, is the ultimate happiness, and is permanent. So even though it, like Dharma, there is definitely also influence of Hinduism. It is even explained in the Lankavatara Sutra. Lankavatara Sutra explains that this concept of the great self is to teach the Brahmins the Dharma of non-duality. But as you may know, the Hindu teachings, they have also teachings of non-duality, but explained in a different way. But it is another thing. We don't go into it now. So let us go into the text. This is very important background, which I try to explain in a simple way, simplistic way. I hope you find more interest and study more about it. So this apratishtita nirvana, the non-established nirvana, is purely Mahayanistic concept. You will never find it in the Pali or early Sanskrit scriptures. It is only explained in the so-called Mahayana scriptures, explaining the Bodhisattva path. The aim of the Bodhisattva path is to attain the great nirvana, which is not established. And this great nirvana is what is to be realized. And now we come to the text, if you don't mind. And this text, now we are at this section precisely dealing with this paradox. As you may know, in Yogacara Bhumi Shastra, in Sandhi Nirmochana Sutra, which is a base for Asanga, and Vasubandhu's explanation of Chittamatrata, the mind only, there is no question of the tathata suchness moving in all destinies according to the causes and conditions. There is no such concept with Asanga, with Vasubandhu. It only comes in the philosophy of Buddha nature or Tathagata Garbha. And our text is the best philosophical explanation that we have of this tradition. That is why it became so popular. It is only extant, as far as I know, in Chinese. It may have been in recent time in Dharamsala translated even into Tibetan, because it is a very important text. The text which the Tibetans study and which is available in Chinese, philosophical text on the Tathagata Garbha, is a Uttaratantra Shastra, very important text. So let us go. This is a very good question, because we are exactly coming to this question. And let us see how the wise Ashwagosha, not this limited wisdom of Thomas or Damadipa or Sinkung Fash can grasp. We come to the question. We have explained the tathata, the suchness aspect of the mind. This we have explained that the suchness aspect of the mind is unspeakable, ungraspable, has no any images by which we can understand it, no way to get at it through thinking. One has to go beyond thinking to get into it, or to get direct vision of it. This is very important, and this is not in contradiction with the Pali scriptures and with the early Buddhism, or what we usually call early Buddhism. It is by no means sure that it is early Buddhism. When you directly attain nirvana, that means by touch. Directly attaining means by touch. When you attain nirvana by touch, even so it is a paradox again, it is unattainable, but you attain it nevertheless by touch of the direct intuition of the mind, and the touch of the direct intuition, you become Shrotapanna. When you touch nirvana with your mind, you become Shrotapanna. Even though you touch it for just one moment, very short moment, it will completely change your existence. Because it's like awakening from the dream. It is again compared in the same in Mahayana scriptures. When you attain directly touch nirvana with your mind, you are like awakened from a dream. But you have not yet realized a dream, but yet you have realized a deep transformation of the mind. So you don't believe anymore that this body and this mind bound to this body is your true self. So it will change the way you relate to yourself, you relate to others, because uh, you know others are in the dream, but one who becomes a saint, he is in a dream, but he knows he is in the dream. This is a big difference because he touched directly with his mind that which is beyond the dream. So he is awakened, but only for a short time, short awakening. But this short awakening changed his life completely. So he knows this experience of samsara is like a dream. This is a great advantage of becoming awakened. This uh, mind bound to the body and this clinging mind which we all have is you know that this is not the true reality. So when you have even this brief moment of touching the ultimate reality with your mind, you become Shrotapana, you have entered the stream to nirvana. You can go into the samadhi based on nirvana, because that impression, this direct touch of nirvana with your mind, you can never forget. Impossible. Just like when you have attained dhyana, and deep dhyana, you can never forget. So whenever you want to enter the dhyana, you can enter it again, because it is a very powerful experience. You can never forget very powerful experience. Similarly, that experience of direct touching the ultimate reality, you always will carry in your mind. You cannot forget it. So if you reborn again, and unless you become an arahat, you are bound to be reborn again, then you will be reborn with the deep insight into reality. So you will not be putu jana. Putu jana in Pali, putu means bright, bright spectrum of uh, greed, bright spectrum of aversion, bright spectrum of ignorance will be will shrink. Once you have touched nirvana with your mind, the bright spectrum of the ignorance, and based on ignorance of our clinging and aversion, will shrink. So we will have defilements, but they will not last. They will not last. This is a state of a saint. He has defilements, but they will not last. This is a wonderful condition. As for a bodhisattva, and most of the bodhisattvas, they are putujanas, because they want to attain the non-dualistic nirvana, unestablished nirvana, which is more difficult to realize. So they will learn to touch this nirvana by faith. That's why we have the the arising of the faith in Mahayana is based on faith. We don't see the Dharmakaya, we don't see the suchness, but if we want to practice the Bodhisattva path, We, even so we don't see it, we, so to say, touch it by faith. Because we are repeating some mantra, pure land practice, and so on, they become very, very deep impression in our mind. Even so, we are not yet directly touched this non-dual reality. We become familiar with it, and it does not abandon us. So most of the bodhisattvas practice like that. So this is the touching of the great nirvana by causes and conditions which we develop for bodhisattva by practicing the perfections, the paramis. By practicing the paramis, we practice faith in the Dharmakaya, we practice the Pure Land, which is the symbol of Dharmakaya, which is the Dharmakaya with image, as opposed to Dharmakaya without image. The Dharmakaya without image can only be transmitted to beings with image, no? Even so, it has no name, it can only be transmitted by names. Even if it has no sound, it can only be transmitted by sounds. This is a paradox. And this is a fun of living when we live with paradox. Mostly the depressed beings, they don't want paradox. You want a better quality of life, so get used to living with paradox. Very wonderful thing. So this higher intellect, the religious intellect, which leads beyond suffering, it is always an intellect based on paradoxes. It's the same in other religions too. In Indonesia, the Sufis, and the Muslims, in Christian tradition, the mystics, and Jewish tradition also. In all traditions, the saints, they explain by means of paradoxes, because our life is a paradoxical. And now we come to the text finally. This explains this paradox. Let us see it. So we have explained the suchness aspect of the mind, which is ungraspable, unspeakable, has no images, and so on. So the question is, if this is a meaning, that means if this suchness aspect of the mind is ungraspable, unspeakable, unreachable, and so on, the we beings, how do we come together, or how do we adopt to this meaning of the true reality? And how, and still more, how we can actually attain it, that which is unattainable? Very good question. This true reality is unattainable, unspeakable, ungraspable. So this becomes an empty reality if we cannot relate to it. So how do we relate to it? And how do we actually attain it? How do we attain the unattainable? How do we attain the sound of the one hand clapping? How do we attain the the paradox of myself repeating the name of Amitabha, but there is no one who repeats the name of Amitabha because the being does not exist, as the Diamond Sutra and all the Pragya Paramita Sutras teach. From the very beginning, the notion of the soul, of the true self, is an illusion. So this being so, how we attain, how we understand, or how we approach that which is beyond illusion. Here the faith comes in. When you study the Theravada Buddhism, as I have done, how do I enter the study? By practicing the Asubha, the meditation on the non-beautiful, by practicing the meditation on the breath, shamatha part and the vipassana part, investigating the five aggregates, investigating the impermanence of the five aggregates, getting disappointed, disenchanted with the five aggregates, with their impermanence, then no grasping for these five aggregates. When you don't grasp for these five aggregates, then you turn away from these five aggregates, and then you may have the the mind touching directly the pure reality, which you cannot define. Call it nirvana or non-established nirvana or whatsoever. That the reality, which is called nirvana, is called nirvana because it is free from defilement, and as such it cannot be defiled. Nirvana cannot be defiled. What can be defiled is the mind which does not has not reached nirvana. But nirvana cannot be reached. So how can that mind reach nirvana? This is a wonderful question, wonderful paradox. How can we listen to the one hand clapping? So the answer is we can approach it, or we can adopt to it, sui shun. That means be in harmony with it. We can, for lack of better translation, we just translate how to approach it. If we know that all the dharmas, even though we speak about them, we cannot, unless we speak, nobody will take them seriously. We have to speak so that we deluded beings that take them seriously. So even though we speak about all the dharmas, now we have learned that all the dharmas is one mind. Very important. All the dharmas are one mind, because without mind there cannot be the dharma. So even so we speak about these dharmas which are not different from such. Something? Some noise is there? even we speak about the dharmas, we make noise of that which is silent by its very nature. There is actually no one who is the speaker, Neng Shuo. So who is the speaker? Even so, we speak about the dharmas. We make all kinds of differentiations, right? This speaking is making differentiations. This is kind of a paradox of speaking. When we speak, we differentiate. So the differentiation comes from thinking. Without thinking, we cannot speak. So even so, we speak about all the dharmas. In this sense, we speak about all the images that the mind creates, which are not separated from suchness. There is no one who speaks. There is no subject of speaking. There is no Neng Shuo. Even though we think about these dharmas, we in Chinese a wonderful word, sui nian yi wu neng nian ke nian. Even so, nian is a wonderful word we have in Chinese. It's quite different in Sanskrit also. Nian means to think, but nian also means to remember. Very wonderful thing. This already the old Socrates has said that thinking means actually remembering, because what we think are images, and images are concepts. And these concepts are different for gods. These concepts are different for us human beings. Even among us human beings living in Indonesia or Europe or in a Brazil jungle or Africa somewhere, these concepts may be very, very different. So even so, we think, we remember things. There is actually no one who is the subject of thinking, who is the thinker. There is thinking, but there cannot be any thinker. A thinker, if there is a thinker, then Buddhism does not make any sense. There is no one who thinks, and there is nothing which can be thought. Very wonderful. We think, but there is no one who thinks, and there is also nothing which can be thought. Here we come to the essence of the paradox. We have to think, but from the point of view of the highest reality, there is nothing actually to think about. And no thinker as such. There is thinking, for sure, but there is no one who thinks. So, this is the paradox we live in. And this is a paradox we can only understand by faith. There is no way to understand it rationally. There is nothing we can think about, yet we have to think. If we don't think, we will never improve ourselves. We will never adopt to the way. We will never approach the way. But yet, We really approach the way when we know that we are thinking, but there is really not any real object we can grasp by thinking. We cannot grasp the reality which is beyond thinking by thinking. Yet, we have to think to grasp this reality. This is a paradox we beings are always confronted with. So how do we come to be interested in this reality altogether, which does not make any sense really? Because we have some understanding of suffering. So exactly because we know suffering, we know there must be something beyond suffering. But we have not realized, most of us, that which is beyond suffering. So we have to have faith that it exists. So because there is the compounded, which is our worldly experience, there Buddha explained there must be the uncompounded, which is beyond thinking, because it is precisely the thinking which compounds, which puts things together. This process is called vikalpa. But the reality is beyond vikalpa. But yet we can only understand it by vikalpa. This is our paradox. Vi means differentiation, kalpa means fabrication, klp. Fabricate, put together. We put things together, fabricate things by our thinking. But that which is fabricated in its true essence, it cannot be thought, because we have learned the Dharma is a one mind. We don't see the one mind. We have to believe in the one mind. This one mind contains everything. That is why the first translator of this treatise was some British missionary. He translated this Dharma as one mind as being God. Very interesting. For him, it was very clear what he's speaking about. It is just God. One mind, ungraspable, unthinkable. This is precisely what the Western mystics were talking about. This ungraspable, this light in the darkness. First, one must experience the darkness to experience the light. But the darkness, in the darkness, arises the faith. So when we know that we are thinking and remembering, because thinking is remembering, yet there is no one who think, and nothing that can be thought about as far as the highest reality is concerned, that means we are approaching, or we are adopting to the real state of the things. And how can we adopt to it? By faith. This is what it's all about. So in Theravada, as I have mentioned, we learn the objects of wisdom, dependent origination, objects of wisdom, five aggregates, and so on. Their dependent origination, whatever arises in dependent origination arises due to ignorance. It is put together, and then it makes the consciousness which differentiates the body and the mind and the six bases and so on. This is how the thinking develops. So to adopt to this is precisely what Nagarjuna also explained, to adopt to the highest reality, we have to discard our reliance on concepts. Yet, without the concepts, we cannot grasp reality. We always live in this paradox. Living in this paradox is also living in wisdom. So adopting the uh, uh, to the true reality. So faith is what makes us adopt to the true reality. So you will find similar idea in the uh, Theravada scriptures. Yesterday I was talking about it. I had a lecture. Actually, in the Theravada, the first mental factor to be affirmed in order to progress in the Dharma, in order to attain Dharma, is a faith. When we have faith, Abhidharma explains, Pali Abhidharma, then we have sati, we have memory. Memory means we have mindfulness. Mindfulness is a base for awareness. When we have awareness, we have ethical behavior. We have fear of causing harm and shame of harm. And so we develop all the positive qualities on the base of mindfulness. So this is Nien. Now, in the Mahayana tradition, the true Nien is understanding the no Nien. This is a paradox. We Nien that by thinking, by remembering, there is no one really who thinks and no one who remembers. They are just mental processes completely free of the self. So we adopt to the true way the things are. There is no other way. Give rise to the faith. In the Theravada tradition, it is a faith by correct differentiation. In the Mahayana tradition, it is a faith of going beyond differentiation, going beyond thinking. Going beyond thinking is going beyond grasping. It does not mean that we do not think. We think even more because the object of thinking is very difficult to grasp. So we learn dialectics. We learn the logic, the Dharmakirti, what is the uh, correct means of knowledge and so on, all to establish that which is unthinkable by thinking. So, in other words, we have two ways to realize nirvana. They are combined. One is by direct touching, The other one is by creating the proper causes and conditions, by practicing the wholesome and avoiding the unwholesome. Practicing the wholesome means having attention based on reality. Juli Zoi Yonisho Manasikara. And when we have Yonisho Manasikara in the non-dualistic way, we are, so to say, adopting, we are coming into contact with the highest reality, which is beyond differentiation, yet still, paradoxically, it can only be understood when we differentiate correctly. So we are in a very wonderful territory where the author Wise Ashwagosha brings us to, the territory of living with paradoxes. Living with paradoxes in this tradition means living with a faith. Now, when we give up, when we abandon the remembering, when we abandon thinking, that is called, we attain the unattainable. We attain by entering into the truth. Entering into the truth is actually beyond thinking. And this is same in Theravada also. You cannot attain nirvana by thinking. You can only attain nirvana by directly touching it with your mind, and directly touching something that cannot be touched. We are living in this paradox, directly touching something which cannot be touched. This is how we enter. Now, this touching, when we have an image in the mind, when we practice dhyana with an object, we still touch the image of the object. The object may disappear, like the in-breath and out-breath. When we are deep in concentration, no more in-breath, no more out-breath, but the mental image is still there. To be connected with a mental image means to think. But the nirvana has no mental image. So, that which has no mental image is beyond thinking. But we can only approach it by creating the mental images and training concentration and vipassana on them. This is the correct differentiation. Now, in Mahayana, especially in this tradition, not so much in Asanga, Vasubandhu, alaya-based explanation of dependent origination. But in this tradition especially, we can only approach by non-remembering, non-thinking. And that will only happen when we understand that when we think, there is not a subject of thinking, and what we think also cannot be really reached because it is only image, and the nirvana has no image. Therefore, it is beyond ignorance. We create ignorance by creating unreal images to which we grasp, which we hold, and which we take for reality. But for a realized person, it is only a dream. And when we are not realized, then we contemplate it as a dream. There is no thinker, and there is no nothing which we can grasp by thinking. So we learn the dialectics, we learn the logic, which explains what is the direct perception, what is the direct derivation, and so on. These are the true means of knowledge. We have to learn all this to understand that that which is beyond image cannot be grasped. All that we can grasp, as the Buddhist logician explained, is only impermanence. We cannot grasp that which is beyond impermanence. All we can grasp is just impermanence. So the mind of nirvana cannot be grasped because it grasps something which is beyond impermanence. Whenever we grasp something, it is impermanence. It cannot be anything beyond impermanence. So let us continue. This is a very important passage, and this will clarify when we think about it what comes next. So the text continues, and furthermore, this suchness, or this what is called suchness, when we talk about it, that means when we differentiate it by language, when we already talk about it, we differentiate it. When we open the mouth, we already differentiate. We differentiate it in terms of two aspects. Maybe the best translation here is two aspects. That means this suchness, this true way the things are, this dharma element, or this dharma body, dharma kaya, all these are synonyms. So this suchness, when we already talk about it, when we don't talk about it, these differentiations are not there. But when we open the mouth, already there is differentiation. And what differentiation when we open the mouth and talk about suchness? That is the suchness in terms of the real emptiness, because it can illustrate, demonstrate, reveal the ultimate reality, which is beyond image. And we have the true non-empty. We have, when we talk about emptiness, we have the true empty and true non-empty. These two aspects all belong to when we open the mouth and talk about the uh, suchness. These two aspects will be there. That aspect which makes that ultimate reality empty, hmm? And that aspect which makes it non-empty. If it is only empty, no way to approach it, right? If it is only empty, then no way to approach it, because empty has no characteristics, no qualities whatsoever, which you can impose on it. To the empty, you cannot add anything, you cannot take away from it anything. So it is not of great use. That which is of great use, that is that which is truly not empty. So we had this distinction in the beginning. You had the essence and you had the own essence, which has a great essence, great characteristics, and great functions. So the essence you cannot talk about, but that which you can talk about, and that is not empty, because empty you cannot grasp, and that which is not empty, it has own essence. Own essence means this uh, the virtues which belong to the anashrava, nature, to the nature free from asavas, from inflow and outflow of impurities into the mind. We have four in Buddhism, very important to learn this basic Buddhism. We all should study. There are four kinds of asavas or ashravas in Sanskrit. The first is kama ashrava, the uh, the attachment or grasping for the five objects of the senses. Uh, that means the qualities of the five objects of the senses, grasping for them. Grasping means we want to appropriate them for ourselves, for the imaginary self, which we imagine exists behind the mind which grasps for them. Then we have the grasping for existence, grasping for non-existence. That is also, when we grasp for non-existence, that is also in outflow or inflow of impurities into the mind. When we grasp for existence, it is also inflow and outflow of impurities into the mind. So we have, and then we have the bhava. Actually, we do not grasp for, this is tanha. I am now, we have the grasping for the sensual pleasures, we have the grasping for existence. We normally do not grasp for non-existence, but we have the tanha. There are three kinds of tanha for sensual pleasures. This is related to asavas, that's why it's easy to confuse. We have the desire or grasping for sensual pleasures, we have grasping for existence and grasping for the greed for non-existence. But here we speak about inflow and outflow of impurities. So this is explained in terms of inflow and outflow of impurities when we grasp for the sensual pleasures, inflow and outflow of impurities when we grasp for existence, inflow and outflow of impurities when we are subjected to ignorance, and inflow and outflow of impurities when we are subjected to clinging to views, ditthi, asava. So we have the kama asava, bhava asava, avijja asava, and ditthi asava, four asava. For inflow and outflow of impurities, they are also called four yogas. Yoga means the bond, the four bonds which bind us to the samsaric existence, to the inflow and outflow of impurities. So this the virtues which are freed from the inflow and outflow of impurities, they are real. They are not unreal. So they cannot be empty. We can actually realize them as something real. But they belong to the suchness. The real virtues belong to the suchness. The mind without inflow and outflow of impurities belongs to the suchness. The suchness is inseparable from the mind free from inflow and outflow of impurities. And this mind free from inflow and outflows of impurities, it is true. We cannot consider it as untrue. And yet it belongs, again, we are speaking always in paradoxes, it belongs to that which is truly empty, which you cannot grasp. So this is precisely what the Daimon Sutra explained. All the great virtues, all the paramis belong to the suchness, which is always generous, which is always connected with discipline, with Shila, which is always tolerant, which is always never lazy. Which is always concentrated, which is always wise, and so on. It has always skillful means in this sense of Tathagata Garbha, which flows in four states of five states of existence, and so on. So it is part of, even so, our mind is not connected with them. We try to connect with them. And in order to try to connect with them, we have to consider them as true. They belong, they are inseparable from the true reality, which is free from self-existent nature. So these are the two aspects. Now, when we speak about the empty aspect, this is asamprayukta. It is not connected with any impure dharmas from the very beginning. It was never connected with impure dharmas. The empty aspect of the suchness was never connected with impure dharmas. And it is always free from all the images based on differentiation. Because it has never Wang Xiang, it has never illusionary thinking. It cannot have an illusionary thinking because it is never connected with defilement. The defilement comes from illusionary thinking about the real object, about the real subject. This is illusionary thinking. So one has to realize that the self nature, the true nature, which is self nature, the empty nature, the nature which is freed from self existence. This nature which is freed from self existence, you cannot say that it has an image. You cannot say that it does not have an image. You cannot say that it neither not have nor have an image. You also cannot say that it neither not have nor not neither is freed from the images nor not freed from the images. There is no way to understand it in terms of the four so-called koti, chatushkoti viprayukta. It is completely free from the four extremes: existence, non-existence, neither existence nor non-existence, and both, neither non-existence nor non-existence. Any way of thinking will not be able to catch it. And it is free from the image of unity. It is free from the image of different, of the difference. Difference is also a mental image. It is free from not having an image of unity. It is free from not having an image of difference. So it cannot be grasped in any way in terms of the oneness or difference, of being same or of being different. All this does not apply to it. So in other words, explaining in a simple way, it cannot be connected with us beings who are thinking illusionary thoughts moment by moment, always remembering some illusionary thoughts about the real object and the real subject. This is what makes us beings, separate beings. We always think in terms of the separate subject and separate object. And all this thinking is absolutely empty of any self nature whatsoever. That which is called non-empty, which is called, it is only differentiation by words, by concepts, by speech. This is whatever is differentiation by speech. It cannot hold. So that what is revealed as true essence, which is empty of everything false, that is the true mind. The true mind is completely free of every falsity, of every the established differentiation. That is why it can adopt to any situation. This is a non-dual teaching. This is what Vimalakirti tries to explain to the Arahats. He, the true mind, can adopt to any situation, to any way of thinking, because it is not established anywhere. So it is neither pure nor impure, no one, no different. It is beyond thinking. So that which is free from delusion, that is a true mind. And that true mind, it cannot change. And it is always pure and always concentrated. Therefore, it means it is free. It is free from uh, emptiness. It is non-empty. It is true. Empty in the Sanskrit or Pali means zero. It is not zero. Zero is the negation of something, but this cannot be negated. It exists because we understand the zero. This is again another paradox. Because we understand the zero, we can understand that which cannot be defiled. It cannot be objected to inflow and outflow of impurities. It is the purity itself. And this purity, we cannot consider it as being empty. It really, we must consider it as really existing. This mind free from inflow and outflow of impurities really exists, but not exists in terms of thinking, in terms of contrast between this and that, but it includes everything. A very important thing, with this we will end today. It also cannot be this pure mind which really exists. It cannot be grasped in terms of the images. But it can only be directly realized by not remembering, by not thinking of any object in particular, of any gochara. Gochara means that where the gochara means in Sanskrit, very wonderful word. It means that where the cow is the pasture of the cow. The cow is our mind, and our mind to be functional needs a pasture. If the cow has no pasture, it will die. So our mind also needs an object to be kept alive. But this truly existing mind, you cannot grasp it in terms of any images of any object which can be grasped. You can only grasp it by direct realization, which is beyond the all images which we create in the mind. Very wonderful. So how do we practice Mahayana in this sense? By living and getting accustomed to live in the paradox of our existence. The reality cannot be grasped, but we grasp knowingly with mindfulness and awareness. The subject is not there, the object is not there, but yet the grasping is there. The subject is not there, object is not there, yet the thinking is there. But what kind of thinking? We have to find out. What is the thinking with mindfulness, with awareness, and what is the thinking without mindfulness and without awareness? The thinking with mindfulness and awareness is the thinking which you do not grasp. And that is adopting, we have learned, or approaching the highest reality. Until we realize that which is beyond object, beyond any image of object. And still we live in objects, we live with images, but these images we finally penetrate, and when we penetrate them, we come to the true mind. So we will see in the next lectures how we penetrate this falsity of the images, of the subject, of the object, of the true subject, true object, and true mind, which holds to the subject and the object. It is again the process, and this process we will try to understand. It is wonderfully explained in the scripture, so we have a lot to learn, and I am glad to learn. I hope you will find more and more interest in learning too. So that much for today. If there are any questions, we can, urgent questions, we can go to them now. Otherwise, we will start when we will meet again. Today is 21st. Monico, 29th, please bring the calendar.
Perhaps 28, Master.
28. Let me check.
Same time.
28, we have something?
No.
28, nothing. Okay, 28, again the same time, 2:30.
Yes,
So
Master.
please write it down, Monica. Now I am very fortunate. I have a help secretary. I cannot keep all these things in mind. I am getting old, and what to do?
And next time, please tell a story, Master.
Oh, the story. Well, well, I have tried to illustrate something, but next time I think of some real stories that happened in my life, and which may also happen in your life too. Okay?
Thank you, Master.
So let me think about what really happened and which illustrates the paradoxical nature of our existence. You may think about say similar stories in your life, and you can also tell me we can enjoy together. Okay, so let us, as usual, we trying to attain the unattainable. We should transfer merit to all beings. This is the beginning of our journey. So let us do it. 愿以此功德普济一切，我等一众生皆共成佛道。May the merits of today's practice spread to all beings so that we attain the state of perfect realization. Om Mitoba. So, okay, that much for today. And next time we start with a story. Okay?
Yes, thank you very much, Master. Thank you, everybody.
So, to illustrate
You,
the paradoxical nature of our existence.